Today on the Dirty Diggler podcast, straight from mom and dad's garage to your home, we have Andreas, the newly appointed CEO of Access Protocol. Welcome on the podcast, bro.
Thanks for having me. I love the background. It's probably the best I've ever seen.
It is not a 2001 Honda Civic, but it's close.
Disappointing on that, but we'll take
Disappointing. Maybe I could change the background.
it.
All right, man. Before we get into the new role in Access Protocol, I like to give the guests a little backdrop on kind of your story, what got you into crypto, how you ended up at Access Protocol and creating.
Yeah, so got into crypto at least first aware of it 2013. My brother was mining Bitcoin in mom and dad's basement, and one day they start bitching at him, asking why the electricity bill's gone up so much. And that was kind of my first learning and interaction of Bitcoin. But I think I was kind of like, I was in college. So I was like, oh, that's cool. But then I was back doing like kind of my college degenerate stuff. And once I got out is when it started crypto itself started kind of flashing on my radar a little bit more. So was working in a few startups, did a quick stint at JP Morgan. And around 2017, similar as many other people would, we just saw this massive wealth opportunity via ICOs. So naturally, the same way most people do, I started trading, and that was kind of my first interaction in the space. Around that time, I was like, I would love to do this full time. This would be amazing. And then obviously the ground fell out from underneath everyone, which was also fun. Lost the whole bag, as most people do their first cycle.
Yeah.
But then I was still poking around on crypto Twitter, and I was like, oh, damn, like some people are still here. There's companies that are still here, which is interesting. There's got to be like some longevity to this. So that's when I started like looking and applying to jobs for the first time. And I eventually, in 2019, probably the worst time to join the space, or the best time, depending on how you look at it, I joined the block as the first revenue and operations hire. So roughly like the 8th or 9th, maybe 10th employee there, and worked there for about 3 years before starting Access with Mika.
Very cool. Revenue hire. That's very well suited for Access Protocol.
Yeah, 100%. I think like a lot of our learnings from the block and just like our interactions in terms of understanding like media monetization and the differences between like a B2C subscription, a B2B subscription, and also the incentives on like just the advertising front was just a massive inspiration for what we built on the protocol side and what we're ultimately like trying to do and enable for creators. So it was like a very awesome experience, like taking what we've had and saw what worked and what didn't at like a company like the block, but then also taking a look outward and seeing like what have other people done and created in the space for media to monetization to date, and why do we think that they have fallen short.
That's sick. Access Protocol is an innovation on old school Web 2 monetization for content creators. And so you're that Web 3 next step.
Exactly. 100%. Basically, what Access is a way to monetize your audience indirectly versus directly. So we enable monetization via staking. So users take our native ACS token, stake it into a creator's pool or content offering, and receive products, services, emails, newsletters in return for them staking. At a high level, like the protocol has a 2% inflation every single year in perpetuity. And that 2% inflation is split 50-50. So 1% goes to users who stake ACS tokens, and 1% goes to creators who have content offerings.
I like that a lot.
And before we go any further, I want to introduce the first sponsor of the Dirty Diggler podcast, none other than my guys, Zeta Markets. The fastest perp DEX in Solana and crypto. So good, it's better than sex. Centralized exchanges, that is. And now, thanks to a partnership with D-Bridge, you can one-click deposit from any EVM chain directly into Zeta. That is some good degeneracy right there. Oh yeah? And what's that? Can you smell what I'm smelling? That's right. I'm thinking a token is coming soon. Q1, Q2, who knows? The team keeps it pretty tight-lipped. But with the Z-score underway, make sure you're trading. Make sure you're getting that volume up. This one's going to be a real doozy.
Okay, before we dive deeper into the mechanics of the protocol and the exciting V2, I want to congratulate you on the CEO move. Why don't you give me a little bit of information about the team, if you can, about, size, location, maybe your previous role, and why you're so excited to take on the CEO and all of that goodness.
Yeah, so we're a small team. We are 4 people right now. We're all based in Europe. We all work remote. Probably
Nice.
every like 3-4 months we get together. But I'm based in London myself. So the team's composed of myself and Mika. So Mika, founder, former CEO, and moving into an advisory role. So we both split kind of like before his, not departure, but a transfer into advisory role. We split the day-to-day operations. He more manages our development team, and I do all of our ecosystem growth, partnerships, anything that kind of grows the company. So we also have 2 devs that are based in Prague, full-time, Laddie and Vlad. And they are the ones kicking out the protocol and creating all these new products and features and doing our V2 upgrade that we'll touch on later too.
Awesome, man. I'd love to hear that. Okay, let's talk protocol stuff. I want to try to break it down sort of as simply as possible for the users. You know, when they listen to this and they go, okay, Access Protocol, oh, I heard that on the most latest podcast. I see they're doing sponsorship. How do they get involved with the Access Protocol? Is it more of a user standpoint? Is it more of a content creator standpoint? Does V2 merge it? Give it a good breakdown for us.
So yes to all of it. So I think we can take it from a user perspective first, and then we can talk about the creator perspective. So from like at a high level, our goal is to basically like align creator and user incentives and help creators benefit the most from subscription offerings while having users benefit as well, because this is crypto after all. So the way you would get involved as a user is go to our hub. That's hub.accessprotocol.co. You'll see about 100 different creators on the platform. You take our native token ACS and you stake it into a specific creator's pool. And in return, you start receiving whatever specific content offering that they have. So we have companies like The Block, CoinGecko, CryptoSlate on the larger side, and then a massive long tail, 80 plus creators that are pumping out content in the form of NFTs, long form research, poems, whatever have you. It's a diverse array of content. So in addition to the content that you're going to be receiving, you're receiving ACS on a daily basis, proportional to the amount that you have staked. So every day you're earning the ability to consume more content across the ecosystem. If you particularly like a creator, say I'm staked to the Dirty Diggler, I love your work. I have a bunch of ACS that I've accrued over the course of the last 3 weeks. I am incentivized on an ACS basis to stake more into your pool. Because one, I really like you, and we both win by more ACS going towards each of us. So that's kind of the way that the incentivization works to get people aligned with their creators. And just a fun stat that we have for you is we have about 220,000 unique subscribers on the platform.
Wow.
20% of them stake more than double what the minimum amount is to subscribe to a pool. So imagine that you have a subscription offering and it's $5 a month, and someone walks up to you and says, 20% of people walk up to you and say, nah, fuck your $5. I want to give you 10. That just doesn't happen. That's not something that happens in the standard subscription world. And that's like one of the data points that we have in terms of like average revenue per user that is got us really excited about like the next few years of the protocol and what that looks like. So it's working exactly as designed.
I like that a lot. One, I gotta fire my producer because I should already be Web3 integrated. I've known about this for too long, and it's a sham. It's a sham that I'm
We
not
got to
already
get you
doing
on.
this. Yeah, I know, right? If you're listening, Tanya, pay attention. Um, and two, I actually really like that. Like the Web3 subscription model. Like think about like you're paying a bill for your outdoor magazine. You're not going to double down and decide that you want to pay twice the cost. So it's cool that like with Web3, like ownership, you kind of like you've already got that affiliation with the creator and you want to support their work. And I'm not saying everybody needs to pay double, but it is an interesting aspect that never existed before.
Exactly.
Nobody's doubling down because they like the content.
It lets you capture like the full demand curve and allows you to realize the full propensity of someone's purchase ability. And it's one of like the funny things that I would always say before we launched and why I thought it would work was like the value that someone has that they can provide to you differs across who they are and what they do. And I always found it so funny that we have Bloomberg subscriptions, for example, their retail subscription, and there is some like poor starving person in law school or in business school that's barely making payments for this, but they do it because they need it for work. And then you have a Fortune 500 CEO. Both of them have different propensities to buy and are receiving different amounts of value for this product and service, and they're paying the same exact thing. I guarantee you if the Bloomberg CEO could pay a little bit more, he probably would, just because he's getting more value out of it. So that's what we're trying to enable, is just capture the entire demand curve, and people that have the ability to subscribe and pay more indirectly will do so. And we have the data that says it.
That's awesome. How has like you mentioned, the subscribers, 220,000 unique ones. How has the growth curve been? Is it month over month continuing to go up? And then also, what's it like for bringing content creators on? Because I imagine it's probably harder to find content creators than it is to find, say, subscribers.
It's interesting. It is different for both of them. So we had probably three months post-launch. We launched 1 year ago on Feb 15, 2013. Terrible time to launch as a crypto startup on Solana.
Or the best time.
Or the best time. Yeah, it's both. I think like I lost a few years of my life, but yes, in retrospect, it was the best time. So we had a little bit of a stagnant phase, and then we started getting up into the right growth. I would say that we plateaued a little bit, and we have kind of hypotheses around that, and we're launching a V2 that's going to help with that growth significantly. So that's on the user front, and we can dive into like what V2 does and what it enables. On the creator side, actually, it's just been slow and steady up and to the right. The protocol is interesting in the sense that you do need to grow it slowly, and the more creators that come on, the more decentralized and I guess the less risk that the protocol and platform has. So we've been onboarding creators almost daily now. We have like a backlog now of one creator a day for 5 days a week for like the next month. And the creators range and vary from like people that write poems, people that do crypto research, a lot of people that do just general like crypto safety content.
That's interesting. I like that.
Then we have a bunch of NFT artists and people that are minting compressed NFTs to all of their subscribers. That's something that we have a dedicated platform to as well. And then obviously on the integration front, we have companies like Crypto Slate, who has integrated us and only uses us for their subscription offering, The Block, Crypto Times in Japan, and then some like medium-sized research firms, D-Spread in Korea, Wu Blockchain. You guys all probably know Wu Blockchain's tweets online. So yeah, it's a diverse set of content, and I think like the protocol itself is adaptive and portable in terms of how you use and engage with your audience. So we're going to continue seeing like a wider audience and range of like creators that come on board.
Have you noticed like a life cycle of like, have you been around long enough to notice when you onboard a customer, right? They're bi-curious about the Web3 space. And have you noticed like, okay, they have this idea that people can lock access tokens to get content. A lot of these companies like Wu Blockchain and The Block kind of have like free sections. Do they have this life cycle of they get it and they go, okay, I'm going to lock this up. I'll token gate access to this. And then they learn and they they create more, or they learn about this Web3 monetization and they go, oh, this is really powerful. We can add more benefits to this token gated section. Like, have you noticed any changes in protocols that use the access token? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, 100%. So Crypto Slate is a perfect example. They basically launched Crypto Slate Alpha after integration with Access because they found that they had an awesome engagement on their subscribers. even though they don't have an email address to interact with them, they found that their community was just like much more receptive to subscribing in this manner than actually just making like standard credit card payments. So they've expanded the scope of their Crypto Slate Alpha, dedicated more resources and reporters to the content that falls under it, and have just generally been looking to expand and grow that product and service in general, just because of the receptiveness and the community that they've been able to grow around the subscription offering. Woo Blockchain does a bunch of free content. They kind of use it as like a Patreon in a way.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
completely fine. And we're completely happy with that. Like, we are open to anyone using this in any way that they see fit. And they've been posting weekly on our site, scribe.accessprotocol.co. And they give us the best feedback possible. So it's like an awesome way to engage with people on chain. And if you think about their exact like kind of business offering, like their whole audience is on chain. Why would you not be monetizing on chain versus like taking credit card payments?
So true. I completely align with that. And as we're having this conversation, I'm like, God, you really need to start putting some stuff out on chain.
Yeah, exactly. And just for us, like, I mean, everything, only our monetization is on chain. A lot, we do have the NFTs as well, but like a lot of it is Web 2. And I think that it's the perfect blending of like crypto and the Web 2 world. And people that talk about like provenance and stuff will probably be yelling at me saying like, screw you guys, you got to get provenance on. And I'm thinking about the team over at Iris. But generally speaking, we will get there. But the most important thing, I think, is monetization. Creators need the ability to monetize and get an engaged subscriber base first, and then figure out kind of the other on-chain elements like provenance and things like that.
Now, when you say provenance, you're talking about like the art world provenance, where it's like proof of where it came from and who's next in line. And talk to me about this Iris.
Proof and verification that a article is genuine, for example, as well. And when it was posted, when it was altered, when it was edited, who wrote it, all of that, which now in the world of like AI, obviously becomes a big problem. So that is an important thing. Obviously, down the line, we think this isn't a today problem for us, and there's companies that are way smarter than that trying to solve for it. So Iris is basically just like, it's formerly Bundler, and they basically are just built on top of Arweave and allow programs on Solana to interact with it and pay Arweave fees denominated in Sol. So that you're able to actually interact with Arweave in like a seamless manner. And they have a bunch of other awesome stuff. Check them out. They're very cool. Yeah, great platform.
Right. Before we get into V2, I want to talk about the NFT standards, because you're using CNFTs. And I kind of want, there's a bit of a contentious thing going around Twitter about like Metaplex and sort of their control of the standard and this perceived negativity on the space. And I'm curious how Access Protocol navigates the use of NFTs, and if you have any thoughts on the greater ecosystem of Solana and NFTs being used.
That is a great question. To contextualize everything and why NFTs are like even a thing as it pertains to Access, basically you have a list of on-chain subscribers, right? And we can call that list the same exact thing as having a list of email addresses that you would typically shoot out messages to about their subscription or just engage with. So the natural progression, and this is before compression was even like a thing when we hadn't even launched yet, was creators should be able to send NFTs to their audience and engage with them in the same format that they would be able to in email. So that was naturally the next thing we were going to build out. We want CoinGecko, for example, to be able to send NFTs to their hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It's just a no-brainer in terms of like engagement and figuring out ways to introduce like loyalty mechanisms to get people to stake more. One of the biggest things that discouraged us from like commencing a build out was that Metaplex introduced I believe it's 0.01 SOL fee on minting any of their NFTs via, I believe it was Candy Machine. And that was a bummer. And I will say, I love the Metaplex team. They're awesome. They do a great job. But that was something that I think took people for a surprise. And I know a lot of people say, oh, like 0.01 Sol's at $20 right now. What are you bitching about? But I think those people aren't thinking about like the actual big picture and imagining what it looks like when someone's minting millions of these and creating like a scalable product and service that like is actually mainstream. And obviously Drip is a perfect example of that. The idea of minting and paying that 0.01 fee, if they maintained and like say that compression didn't come out, Drip would probably be bankrupt paying that 0.01 fee at the user size that they have right now. It's just, and at the price that Sol is. At scale, it's just not scalable. And that was the first time I think it woke people up to realize that this isn't something that is owned by the community in a way. I know that they've said that compression is like never going to be impacted by such fees. And I do think that Metaplex is a net positive for the industry, and they've done so much to push it forward. But there's obviously a lot more that can be done to put like the community at ease and knowing that like 100% compression isn't going to be something that can be touched for monetization like that. So it's weird. I am in two minds. It's a bummer to see like those types of restrictions go on something that like the community thought was genuinely open source and free and a public good. And it makes you wonder if they ever will introduce something on compression in the future. I know that like they have this relationship with Solana and that there's no way they do it, but we're in crypto and you need to trust and know that that isn't going to happen. And how do you verify that? And that's the thing that like I think is in the back of everyone's mind. And as a company, it's hard to like commit towards building on something when you know that you have this kind of reliability on a third party. And that's what delayed us from like building out and implementing all of our kind of platforms built on top of Metaplex standards, is because we said we didn't want a third party dependency now that they've kind of introduced that this feature can come out and, or that this new fee is like introduced. So I think that there needs to be like some kind of clear openness in terms of a standard that is owned by the actual Solana community, in order to give companies. So if we thought that as a 4-person company, 3-person company at the time, then what is Facebook or Twitter going to think about building on top of these products and services? And that's one thing to keep in mind.
That is very well said. Yeah, you kind of like the word monopoly gets thrown around and then you want public good. And I'm very early on, I'm not very early on, but I'm early on in my education of the situation. I've kind of been aware of it because of what you read on Twitter. And I was able to actually speak to a room of Metaplex employees, and they were very forthcoming with information. And like I kind of get it, right? Like this is a capitalist society. There wasn't this technology. They built it and said, now this is available on Solana. And I do also understand from like a protocols perspective, it's like, you know, how can you build a company if you don't know that at any time, like a fee switch could be turned on and you'd be evaporated?
Exactly.
So it seems like we're moving down the right road. I know Helios has some implementations coming out, and I believe that it's actually built with Metaplex's technology. So it sounds like we're heading in the right direction. I'm going to leave it with that because I'm not a tech guy, but it sounds like the information is, oh, I just got like.
Nice. I love it. That was
Did
good.
you see that?
You got rewarded for leaving it at that. That was great.
That was wild.
I will say, yes, capitalist Andreas is like, fuck yes. Like Metaplex is an awesome company and they've built awesome shit. And there's just no denying that the Solana space would be in a worse place without them. But as a builder, you do want to know that like what you're building on top of is going to remain consistent and that you aren't prone to losing a few months or maybe years of work in some companies' cases to a small like fee switch, for example.
Nope, that adds up. Okay, sir, it's enough time. Let's get into V2. Tell me where the access protocol is going. What can we expect? All the good stuff.
Yeah. So I kind of like dove into the way the protocol works, but if you think about the way that media works, it's got some things that are like beneficial, but some things that are terrible in terms of like crypto UX. So one of the funny things that we learned about all these like sites that we've integrated on is that roughly 80% of users on those sites don't have a Web3 wallet on their browser. And that's pretty shocking. You'd think like, oh, someone touching CryptoSlate or the block has probably a higher likelihood than not that they have Phantom or MetaMask or anything installed. And it's quite the opposite. So if you take the current format of like how a web or non-Web3 user would onboard into Access, it sucks. You need to download MetaMask or onboard via Taurus, for example. So create an account via your email. It's not as bad as like storing your seed phrase and logging on Phantom, but not ideal. Then you need to on-ramp into Access and purchase Access tokens. Then you need to find and get those tokens if you on-ramp via Coinbase, for example. You need to send those tokens to your wallet. Then you need to go to the subscription page on either Access's site or the Blocks website or CoinGecko's site or CryptoSlate's site. And then you need to stake. And like, I'm sorry, if I haven't lost you already, then I have lost you on staking. Like, not even a question. So our whole idea was like, how do we reduce all of this friction? And I believe that Access is going to be the first. I'm going to put an asterisk on this just in case some random person has done this and they come screaming at me saying I'm a liar. But Access is maybe the first interaction and marriage between liquid tokens and compressed NFTs. So what we're doing is basically tying stake accounts with compressed NFTs, which hold all of the metadata associated with the amount of ACS that they're staking, the pool that they're subscribed to, and the kind of offerings that it unlocks, tying it to a compressed NFT, and that being what unlocks content and basically yields rewards. So we're basically doing ACS wrapped compressed NFTs. And by doing that, you can walk up to the Block site or CryptoSlate, and you can make a simple credit card purchase or transfer USDC, and you say you want it for 1,000 ACS, and you will be spat a compressed NFT that basically holds all of those assets with it.
Wow.
And that will unlock all of the content that you have. So you don't need to stake, you don't need to do anything like that. And basically, if you get so privy to understand what Access is, you can go to our website, you can claim the rewards associated with it, and then you can also redeem it in kind for the ACS that is backing it. So that does a lot. I'm going to pause. Super exciting. I'm going to pause and see if you have any questions on that one.
No, that's brilliant. You like reverse engineered the flow to the most sexy point. You know what I mean? Because you allow Web 2 users to go, I want this. This looks fun. Instead of like, how do I get there? It's like, here you go, sexy NFT. You know, it could be like maybe the Block has a customized one with the amount of ACS. You know, you got the details that's like, this accrues this much rewards, blah, 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 blah. Like, know as much or as little as you want. And then know that if you bought this, you could sell it to somebody else kind of thing. So it's like your membership accrues value over time, which is super cool. And like if you're a new user, you like odds are you're going to be like, I need to know more. You know, I need to get a backpack wallet and have this thing sent to that wallet. Is this like tip-link technology kind of like, because it's like you buy the NFT. Is it immediately spun into a wallet of your choice? Like, what's that back end look like?
That is absolutely TipLink. So it would be used and powered and generated by TipLink, and they are by far like the best in terms of just like wallet generation for the average user. So yes, in theory, like what we've done and built is amazing, but obviously not doable without companies like TipLink who are just like unbelievable. So yes, that is what the flow would look like. TipLink, fiat on ramp via Stripe, whatever have you, Coinbase Pay,
Solana
Pay. There we go. And purchasing that NFT and the value and the user, the most minimum thing they need to know is $25 for a lifetime subscription, for example. That's the most basic like value prop that they need to know. And then if that piques their interest, they'll have the information and resources to learn why they only have to pay $25 for a lifetime, what they can do with that subscription that is in their account now. So we think it's like a very good kind of tip of the iceberg to show these people like
Wow.
what
That's
it is that they're
very
buying and
cool.
hopefully get them to go under the surface. And that's just one of the features on the side of V2. So we're like pumped about a bunch of other things too, but that's like the main one that's going to reduce all of the friction and be part of what increases like subscription velocity.
That's super cool. And like the first innovation, right? Because you could see like, okay, a new protocol pops up, or like a new media agency, or a new anything, and they can sell a subscription service. And it's like you could buy the subscription service at a 50% discount for lifetime membership. And you could buy that. And let's say down the road, you're like, I'm not really getting used to it anymore, but the cost of subscriptions have gone up. Your profit is the difference between where you bought it at and the new price of where it's at now.
Yeah. And you could either list those NFTs and sell them on Tensor. And that's an interesting
Yeah.
one in terms of efficiencies of market and like understanding the underlying ACS that's under a specific NFT. And like,
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what those markets look like because there's a liquid token associated with those. Or they could just go to our site, redeem it in kind for ACS, and then sell the ACS. So
Chris,
there's a bunch of different off-ramping mechanisms for them in that format.
that's really cool. Yeah, you could even go as far as to do like soul-bound style tokens too. So it's like, let's say you wanted to onboard early users, but not necessarily give them the ability to just immediately profiteer on the subscription. You soul-bound people with like, so that when they receive it, they can't transfer it, but it's like proof of access,
Yep.
pun intended.
That's exactly it. And that's actually one of the second features that we have.
Sweet.
So we're calling them forever subscriptions. And basically, before this, there was one burn mechanism in Access. Every time you stake ACS, there's a 2% burn fee from the user side. And that's obviously removed out of circulation. So we're introducing a second burn mechanism that's in the form of like a second kind of loyalty category. And that is forever subscriptions. And basically, you can say, like, I love the Dirt Diggler. I am 100% allocating all my ACS to this person. You might say anyone that gives me a forever subscription, they're locking those tokens in my pool forever. So I'm going to give them a little bonus episode once a month. Users, they
Nice.
stake that. They'll never be able to redeem it in kind for access, but they'll receive the rewards associated with it. So in perpetuity, they'll receive ACS rewards, but those tokens that are underlying it have actually been burned and removed from circulation.
Wow.
They could actually
Wow.
sell that NFT on the secondary, but they would never be able to turn it in for ACS.
Yeah. If you forever subscribe to Dirt Diggler, you will always be invited to his mom's house,
There we
even if
go.
he stops making content. Turkey dinners for everybody.
You heard it here first.
That's super cool, man. That's very exciting. Damn, that's awesome. And when is V2 slated to go live? Did you say next week?
Yes. So let me just pull up the calendar. It's Monday.
I
We're
I guess
recording
we're
this on the
gonna.
22nd. So
Yeah.
the protocol itself is getting upgraded on the 26th. My team will probably like hate me for saying this and something could happen, but 26th, it's happening. And then once the protocol is upgraded, we're going to integrate it into our products shortly thereafter. So the functionality will probably be live a month after that. We also have an built-in on-chain referral network as well. So refer someone, get a cut of their rewards for 3 months, get incentivized to share subscriptions, basically. So that's another one. We got to build it into the UI, and that will be another kind of driver of access growth.
Man, that's super cool. I was reading a tweet of your guys this morning, and it was V2 plus frames.
Yes.
Care to touch on that a little bit?
100%. I mean, so we just kind of dove into like what V2 does and onboarding, and just
Yeah.
the natural progression there is offering products and services via frames and enabling
Yeah.
creators to basically shill themselves and offer their products and services in a simple kind of one-touch interaction. So frames are just like the perfect enablement for creators to distribute their subscriptions and engage people. So a simple swap of USDC into a compressed NFT ACS-backed subscription is just a no-brainer. The layer on top of that is consuming the content that it unlocks within a frame after the fact. So that's something that we're diving into like right after we push V2 out. And just another mechanism to just massively reduce like 90% of the onboarding friction and engage people like where they're consuming content. So right when frames like kind of came out on Farcaster, and now we have them live on Solarplex as well, was just like a no-brainer on our side in terms of just like what the value prop is for anyone that's offering some sort of content offering.
I think that's extremely wise and good foresight for you guys. It's like you're now operating in the innovation zone of media, and you can
Yes,
never shut a door or a window. If somebody else creates a tool that's awesome, it's like, how do we create or add value or get on board with it? Because that's where you're at. Like that's your value proposition. You're staying at the
100%.
forefront of media and content, monetization, interaction, all that good stuff.
Exactly. And that's what the V2 does is it makes our product and platform just more composable. And Frames is a perfect example of like what that composability does when someone else just pushed forth like an unbelievable new technology. So, or not new, I guess Frames have technically been around for quite some time, but a new implementation of it combined with obviously crypto and Web3.
Amazing. All right. One tough question I got for you. Monetization for access protocol. Can you tell me a little bit about that, your guys' kind of plans for the future, growth mode, etc.?
Yeah. So the protocol itself has a 2% platform fee. We haven't thought exactly around like or determined like exactly how we're going to monetize in the long run, but there's a few things that are like top of mind and we need to see what sticks and what works. So one is the burn mechanism that we've mentioned in terms of forever subscriptions. If that performs as well as we expect it to, then that would enable us to transition the 2% subscription fee into a monetization mechanism. Right now, that fee is burned and it's to counteract the inflation. But should we be able to counteract inflation in better ways, then we have the 2% subscription fee. Right now, we've done, I want to say, like $3 or $4 million of subscriptions in our first year. So 2% of that, not bad for first year in business.
Awesome.
In terms of additional items, there is just one, the fees that we could generate on like secondary Solana, like NFT sales. So something on Tensor, we catch like maybe a 0.5% clip on those. That's one mechanism. There is the idea that we offer compressed NFT minting as well. So there is an idea of adding a fee on top of that. So right now we're like minting probably like 500,000 NFTs each month via all of our creators. So
Cool.
just adding like a small fee on top of it, and compression only costs like a few $100 anyways to mint that,
Yeah.
like hundreds of thousands of these. So that's minimal as well. But implementing new fee switches into like integration. So if a large company wants to integrate, then adding and layering in an additional fee on top of that. So I'll say that that is definitely something that we haven't fully fleshed out. But as we grow and get more and more users, we're going to prioritize that. But we have the runway to survive, and that is not like a priority at the very moment. I'll say one of the final like aspirational things I would love to do with Access, but it's just too early, is basically a decentralized ad network.
Hmm.
We have the plugins and the partners. We have the users. Well, we don't have the users yet. You need like roughly 1 million people to do an ad network, 1 million end users, that is. But that's one that like one day I hope we're in the position to do. Um,
That's cool. That's super
and
cool.
yeah, being able to hit people with ads based on like how much access they stake and what other items are in their wallets when they connect that wallet, and also rewarding them and paying them out for those would be a pretty cool feature. So
Interesting.
obviously it would have to be an opt-in, and there's a lot of shit that needs to happen before that.
Dude.
But that is like in a way the monetization holy grail.
The funny thing, I was just thinking, like, man, you like Kellogg's Fruit Loops, one box, airdropped to your wallet.
Yes, there you go. That's exactly it. Like,
That,
why
that's
not?
that's super cool. Two things I'll say. The like having the monetization sorted out in the very beginning isn't something that's sort of thought of any typical technology company. To burning, I don't even think like burning to counteract inflation, I don't even think is necessary. You know what I mean? Like we discussed capitalism, you guys should be able to make money to grow. hire more people, increase your onboarding flow, work towards the advertising networks. So to me, it's like, the 2% inflation is fine. Like that's part of your business model. You don't need to burn it to counteract it. I say you should be
Yeah.
pocketing that 2%. Just my
Yeah.
opinion.
I agree. And I think like one of the weird things that we had to get over was like so many companies in the space and protocols have the ability to launch a product before they launch a token. And we were in this weird thing where actually our products and services don't work without our token. Like you can't monetize, you can't use anything without the ACS token. So we didn't have the benefit of like getting protocol growth first and then being able to say like our ecosystem is sustainable enough to launch a token. Yeah. And so we had to introduce this burn to make sure that it was sustainable. And like, yeah, we went through like growing pains when we first launched, and now we're growing out with them, and the protocol becomes more sustainable with every single creator that comes on board. But that is kind of the reason why we had it introduced early on, is because just like a concentration of so many tokens just within like the first 10 creators, for example, isn't ideal, and now it's expanding outwards. So eventually we'll get to the point we'll be able to keep that, but for now it will burn.
Cool. I love it. All right. Before I let you go, sir, is there anything else you want to say about yourself, about the protocol, the future?
Check us out. Once you use us, you'll love us. You won't want to subscribe to anything else again. So you want to consume while retaining your ability to consume in the long run. And check us out at hub.accessprotocol.co. Follow us at Access Protocol. You're going to love interacting with creators, and it's the future of content engagement and monetization.
And where can they find you on Twitter?
At Andreas_Nicolos. So I've been living behind Access for like a year. I need to be better on Twitter, and this is the kick in the ass that I'm going to have it.
I love it. All right, before I let you go, the one thing I always like to ask my podcast guests is what has been the thing that has kept you sane through the bear market into the beginning of the bull market?
Exercise was massive. You just have to in the bear market. I think you will literally go insane if you're sitting on your ass for 16 hours a day, like ingesting just generalized bear material on Twitter and bear content. Like you will go insane. I think also for me, like just plugging away through 2018, 2019 and just like saying like relative to that, like this place is like fantastic. We're in a good spot despite like FTX blowing up and everything. So I think like seeing everything in a relative perspective was also just like the mental sanity of saying like I am fairly like 100% sure the industry is going to be here, and that at least makes me feel good about the company that we're working on. So yeah, I would say exercise, and now that we're in a bull market, like you might have lost your window there. So exercise in the next bear market.
Love it. Wise words. Thank you for coming on the podcast, sir. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.